All right, I'm getting ready for some Valentine's Day painting classes, so let's do a simple lovebird painting that's so popular this time of year. I'm taking my mop brush with some hot pink and yellow, also light pink and white, and doing angled strokes from top left to bottom right all across the picture. Then I'm going to have a branch coming across the middle of my picture with black paint in my medium round brush. It's kind of angled up towards the left. Then I'm going to show you my favorite way to make birds. I'm going to take a large pouncer with some navy blue and black, and I'm going to add 2 circles next to each other on the branch. Just press down and pull up. Those are the bodies, but birds are almost like snowmen. Think about it. You have the body and then a smaller head. So I'm going to take my medium round pouncer and do 2 little circles on top of those circles, slightly overlapping in the same colors, just like that. All right, and then I'm going to go back in and use my round pouncer, again, the larger one, to go over top of the bottom circle. That way it looks like the head is behind them. And then I'm going to use a detail brush and add 2 little beaks. Notice how they're curved in towards each other, so they're looking up at each other and singing. You can even use a detail brush and shape the body a little bit more if you want. I like to do that to clean up some edges and maybe make it a little bit more rounded at the bottom. There we go. Now here's my favorite way to make bird tails. I'm going to take a fan brush with the same colors and just tap, tap, tap out from the bottom of the big circle. And you don't want to make them too big, all right? But I am going to have kind of a larger stem coming down and then some little ones curved out. Notice how they're going out in either direction, but make it look fluffy. The fan brush makes really good feathery textures. There we go, like that. I love it. All right, so I want to give them a little bit of a home. So I'm going to take my medium round brush and add a couple simple branches. Make sure you're doing the V's. I'm not going to get very detailed with these. I'm just going to make sure they're going all the way around because we are going to cover them in blooms. That's a nice thing about a painting like this. If you do your branches and you don't really like them, you just cover them up. It works. So I'm going to use my C sponge now, as it's just a regular artist sponge, and I'm going to take some white and bounce, bounce, bounce in some blooms. I'm using white to make it really pop against that bright colored background. And you don't want to lose your branches completely, but you do want to make it look like a pretty decent bloom cover, because what that's going to do is it's going to frame your eye towards the center where the birds are, just like that. And this is a happy accident. It kind of looks like a heart, so I'm going to turn it into a heart and even add some highlights with my detail brush to my birds. If you don't like the highlights, you can always go back and cover some up. Like I think I did too much on the tail there. But it makes them pop. I like it. This one is always so much fun, so simple. Kids and adults both like it. So have fun with it, make it your own. I'd love to see how you do. Here's an easy Valentine's Day wreath painting idea that both kids and adults are gonna love. I know I had fun with it. Grab a mop brush and some colors for your background. I'm using hot pink, tan, and white, and do up and down strokes across the entire canvas. Then make sure that's dry and grab a pencil. We're going to sketch a heart. The heart is going to fill up the center of your canvas. Make sure it's big enough so that you can decorate it. And don't worry if it's not perfect, because we are going to add texture over top of it. I'm going to take my fine C sponge with some dark green, light green, and tan. If you did my Christmas wreath painting, it's very similar, but we're just bouncing the sponge over the heart shape instead of a circle. Do that. Make sure you add bright green in places you want highlighted and dark green where you want it shaded. Almost looks like a topiary. There we go. Now dry it so we can decorate it. Grab your paper rolls. I've been saving toilet paper rolls all year for just different things, and I saw this technique the other day I had to try where you turn it into a heart stamp. So I'm going to pinch the bottom edge of my paper roll for the point of the heart, and then point the top part down so you have 2 curves for the top of the heart. You might need to use your fingers to make the top part of the hearts curved. And now as a stamp, you could dip it right into a big puddle. That's going to give you really thick edges, but I want my hearts to be a little thinner, so I'm going to take a pouncer sponge and just dab in over top of the heart to make the paint go on a little bit more even. And then you can use it like a stamp. I'm just going to press down and pull up. And there's a heart. How much fun! I'm going to load it up each time and make sure each of the hearts are kind of leaning a different direction. Think about a wreath. Where would you hang little hearts like this? Now using the same one, I'm going to just bounce on some light red this time. And it's okay if the hearts are overlapping. See how some of them go in over top of each other? That's okay, I like that. And I'm going to take the other one. I loaded it up with some bright pink. There we go. Space them out. And I could leave it like that. I think that looked really pretty, but why don't we add some white in for fun? Pops of white really make it come together usually. All overlapping. How cute! You could leave it like that and it could be done, but let's push it to the limit. Dry what you have so far, and then we're gonna add more decorations. I'm taking a size 5 round brush, and instead of a bow, I'm going to create a big heart hanging from the center and a couple smaller hearts hanging that are accents all around the wreath. I only did about 5 or 6 of them, and then dry them. I did them white first so you could make them whatever color you want, but I decided to do the dark red just because I feel like that's a nice heart color. Fill each of those hearts in, and you may need to do more than one coat to get them solid, but spread it out nice and even. Look at that. And then dry that as well. I am going to take a detail brush and hang my red heart in the middle with a tiny bow. See, 2 loops and then 2 lines coming out curved like little ribbons. I like that. And you know those conversation hearts, you could put whatever you want in here. I'm going to use white and put Be Mine. I don't know, I feel like that's the one heart that I would always eat as a kid with those candy hearts. Maybe some pops of white for highlights. We're going to do that too on the other hearts. Love it. Super simple. And instead of little curlicues in a detail brush, I'm going to take a Q-tip and dot in some little white dots for accents. There we go. Chaotic, just like the Valentine's wreaths usually are. And what's a heart painting without some glitter paint? I'm going to do some glitter Mod Podge this time. It goes on milky but then dries clear, and that's just going to make the accent hearts really pop in the end. I can't help it, that's just me. Glitter is totally optional. Don't forget to use your own colors. You can design it however you want, so make it your own. I had a lot of fun with this one, especially. I did a couple different versions. Some I did different color hearts, and other ones I dipped it instead of using the pouncer sponges, and the little hearts turned out a little bit thicker. Who knew you could paint with paper rolls? If you like this tutorial, follow me for more, and I'd love to see how they turn out. Happy early Valentine's Day! All right, I've had so many people ask for another gnome painting, so let's do a Valentine's Day theme. I'm taking my mop brush with some tan and white and doing up and down strokes, and I'm using stretch canvas for this one. And then I'm going to make sure it's really dry because we're going to do a lady gnome. I'm going to make a dress shape this time, which is a half circle, kind of flared out, and paint it in a dark red. I'm also going to give her 2 arms, one going up to the right and one going down to the left this time. They're kind of sticking out a little further. Now I'm going to give her a nose. I'm going to use some light pink and tan, even a little bit of that red, and add her nose at the top of her dress. And then let's add some detail to her dress. I'm going to do kind of a lighter pink apron and fill that in. You can make it as detailed as you want. Honestly, up till last week, I had no idea lady gnomes even existed. Let's even add some pink to her sleeve. And I'm going to take a detail brush and add some swirly lines to her dress. I'm taking white and just a little bit of pink for that. Let's add some hearts for Valentine's Day. I'm going to do 3 big ones at the bottom and 2 little ones in the middle. There we go. Get detailed with it. I'd love to see what you do. Let's do some swirls on the arms even. Makes them kind of look like hot dogs. That's okay. And let's give her some hot pink shoes. 2 little half circles at the bottom of her dress so she's standing on something. Perfect. And I'm going to even outline her apron. I'm even going to do a little second coat to make it brighter. See, I always change my mind when I'm doing details like this, so feel free to experiment. And now let's do some braids because she's going to be clean shaven. I'm just going to do some lines that swirl down from the side of her nose, crossing over each other to give the illusion of braids, making it a little wider up towards the top of her nose. It's going to be above her nose a little bit, and then going down in front of her dress. You can even extend the bottoms a little bit because I'm going to make it look like they're tied with bows. I think she's going to be super cute. There we go. Let's frill that out. And let's give her a chin. Okay, you got to help me. Is she considered a lady gnome or a lady gonk? Because you're still going to see part of her face, but you're not going to see her eyes, only her nose. And I am going to give her hands, so do some tan ovals on the outside of her sleeves. And let's do a hat. Make sure it goes over top of the nose, but goes over the edge of the braids, kind of curves out like that. And instead of making the hat go up and over to the right, I'm going to make it go up and over to the left and more of a tighter swirl there and fill it in with some hot pink. I Oh, so cute. I love all these different shades of pinks and reds. And because she's going to be older like my Christmas gnome, I'm going to add some gray shading to her braids. You can make them a little bit more detailed and add 2 red bows. Oh, so cute. All right, and I'm going to take my medium round brush again and add a smooth line this time to the bottom of her hat and some polka dot designs. I'm even going to add a heart to the tassel instead of a little pom-pom. So cute. Don't forget those highlights. And surprise, I gave her heart balloons. I don't know why my camera didn't film that, but I did 3 different shades, dark red, bright red, and hot pink. And then I did some hot pink little strings going down from each one, going through that hand that I put up. And don't forget to do some highlights. There we go. And highlights to the nose. And of course, because she's a figure, I am going to outline certain areas just to make her stand out from the background. So taking my detail brush, you can add any details you want. I'm going to outline the hands, her sides, her shoes. I'm even going to do the hearts and add even more shading and highlights. Do shading to the nose. I did highlights to the hands and the feet. And as a final touch, let's give her a little smirk. There we go. And then for the edges of the painting, I did snow on my Christmas gnome, but I'm going to do the same thing in just red and pinks, the same shades I've been using. I'm going to do each of the edges, just bouncing in some texture. And there we go. Aw, they make such a cute couple. I officially have a Valentine for my Christmas gnome. I'll probably add glitter to the hearts later, so have fun with it, do as many details as you want, and happy early Valentine's Day. Let's do an easy sunset painting with a Valentine's twist. Taking a mop brush with yellow and white, I'm going to do a few back and forth strokes in the middle of my canvas, and then without washing the brush, dip right into orange. Start where the yellow left off and do a couple strokes, but then do a couple down into the yellow to help blend that line where they meet. Then I dipped right into pink and did a couple back and forth strokes, blending it down into the orange just a little bit. Don't go down into your yellow, you don't want that to turn pink. And then at the very end, dip into your darkest color. I'm going to do a dark purple and go all the way to the top, and don't be afraid to blend it into that pink a little bit as well. And then dry it. I want a big setting sun, so I'm going to use my large pouncer and dip into some of that yellow and white I used in the sunset. Mostly white because I'm going to use it like a stamp and press down, twist, and pull up, and then dry it. Because we're going to do some mountains in front of it with a size 10 round brush, taking some dark brown, make it a little darker with black, do a line underneath your yellow, straight across. And then you can design your mountains. I want them to be short mountains, so I don't want to lose my yellow, but I'm doing a wavy line. It went across the sun too, and then fill in between. There we go. Now taking the same round brush, I'm going to use some dark green and start filling in underneath my mountains with short back and forth strokes. But I'm not using my mop brush because I'm going to leave a big space on the left-hand side to have a lake peeking in. So figure out where you want the grass. I'm even going to add a little bit of yellow for highlighting in my grass. You can make it as detailed as you want. I want this sunset landscape to be very simple today because what we're going to do next should be the focus. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So add as much grass color and detail as you want, and then clean off this round brush. I'm going to use some bright blue and navy with even a little bit of black, and I'm going to fill in that space just with short back and forth strokes. I'm going to make it a little bit darker towards the bottom of my lake and have it brighter towards where the sun is, and make sure it meets up with your grass. See, I'm going to do darker navy towards the bottom and brighter towards the upper part. There we go. Now make sure your blue is dry so your sun reflection doesn't turn green. But I'm taking a smaller round brush now, and right underneath the sun in the water, I'm going to do a few back and forth strokes. Very lightly, I'm using the tip of my brush and I'm barely pressing down on it. Make sure all these little lines are horizontal. You don't want them going diagonally or crossing over each other, but we're just going to do a couple all different lengths. See how some are longer than others? And if you have trouble blending it, don't worry. While it's still wet, just grab a little bit of water on your brush, clean it off and get some water, and you can really fade it in. See how the water just kind of fades out those edges? But don't worry if you do too much. Here, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. Go back in with some blue, and you can fix up whatever you like then. There we go. It is fun once you get the hang of it, so try it out and let me know how it goes. Now, that was my simple sunset. Let's make it a Valentine's theme. Taking a size 3 round brush and some pink, I'm going to do a horizontal line here, and then make the shape of a balloon. We're going to do a hot air balloon shape today. So I'm going to slowly curve these lines up. It looks like a flattened U shape. And I'm gonna go up to about there and then do a dot that matches up with the middle of that horizontal line and then curve them around. Just like that. Have you ever been in a hot air balloon? I haven't, but I feel like it would be a good Valentine's Day date idea. So that's what we're going for today. Using my large round brush, I'm just filling in that balloon shape then. I used bright pink for Valentine's Day, adding a little bit of white to make sure it covers. Don't forget you can prime it white first if you want to do a different color. And then using a size 0 detail brush, let's start adding a design to the balloon. I'm going to make some very wide U shapes that are all connected going across the top of the balloon. And then I'm going to leave a space in the middle and do the same thing. It's going to be a little shorter because the balloon's shorter towards the bottom here, going across. There we go. Now let's start to make the balloon look round. I'm taking a size 1 round brush. You could use your detail brush if you want. At the first point, I'm going to curve a line up towards the top of the balloon. And then in the middle of the first U, I'm going to do another line curving up. I'm leaving a pink sliver on the left-hand side. And then I'm going to fill in between the 2 hot pink lines. Just like that. See how you have 2 strips of pink in the first U. We're going to do the same thing to each of those U's. Find a point, pull it up towards the top of the balloon, and then in the middle of the second U, curve a line up and then fill it in. Imagine the balloon is round, so all the lines on the left-hand side are going to be curving slightly to the right, and all the lines on the right-hand side are going to be curving slightly to the left. See that there? And notice how they're all ending towards the top of the balloon, but the left ones are towards the left-hand side of the top, and the right lines are ending towards the right-hand side of the top. I'm going to do a little sliver on this right side and fill that in. And let's do a tiny little sliver that's maybe peeking from the edge on the left here. And then repeat the same pattern on the bottom, but they're going to be going the opposite direction. So instead of doing the point, you're going to do underneath the point and then underneath the curve. See that? And then fill in each one. I'm using hot pink again for Valentine's Day, but you could do whatever color combination you want. Don't forget to make it your own. This is just a very simple hot air balloon painting pattern. And then I'm going to take my detail brush with some dark red and start adding a pattern to the middle section that I left blank. I'm going to do some hearts. Why don't we do a large heart in the middle? And then how about some smaller ones on the right and the left? You could really do any pattern you want here. My husband and I went to a hot air balloon festival a couple months ago, and I'll tell you what, it was so cool to see all the different kinds they had. We didn't get to go up in any though, unfortunately, because it was too windy. But they did have something called a balloon glow where they lit them at night and they looked like giant lanterns, so that was super fun. Don't forget to clean up your lines there as well. I added some polka dots. And then grab a detail brush. We're going to clean up the bottom. I'm using a little bit of pink and white to do a line there. And then I'm going to take some tan and make a basket. Didn't mean to line it up with the mountain here, but that's going to work because there's bright yellow. I'm going to do a square about 1 inch underneath the balloon. It's a slightly wider than the bottom of the balloon, and see how the lines on the right and left are tilted out a little bit? I'm going to fill that in with some tan, and then I'm going to take some lighter brown and start adding a pattern. Let's outline the bottom part, and I'm going to make it look like a woven basket. So why don't we do a couple rows of just X's? That's just a simple way to make it look like it's a woven basket. I'm sure there's a couple different patterns you could use. Then I'm going to take a little bit of the same colors and connect the basket to the balloon. Let's do 3 lines on either side of the basket, coming up to a point on each of the corners. And then I'm going to take some dark brown to outline it. And let's just start having fun now. I'm going to hang a couple different strands of lights coming off of the basket, 4 different long strands, and then dot in some yellow for lights. Maybe add some highlights and diagonal lines on the basket to make it look like the lights or even the sunset is shining on the basket a little bit. Why don't we even bring the yellow up into the balloon and add more polka dots? I like polka dots, makes it feel festive. Something about hot air balloons and maybe carnivals, they remind me both of the same thing. I'm even going to add some dots of white in the lights and maybe some shines in the hearts and even in the dots. There we go, makes it pop. And you could do so many different things here, but I'm going to keep it simple and just add a couple birds with a Sharpie, like that. You could add stars, you could add even another hot air balloon or 2. Just have fun with it. So let me know, have you ever been in a hot air balloon? I know I haven't, but I would rather be tethered. I don't know if I'd want to be this high flying, but it looks like fun. I'd love to see if you try this, and if you like this tutorial, follow me for more on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Happy painting! For those of you who wanted to see an angel painting, here is a simple one. I'm using stretch canvas with a mop brush and a light blue and white. I'm going to do up and down strokes in different areas and then very lightly start piecing in some yellow and some tan. All these colors together give it a very subtle rainbow effect, so it's so pretty. Just do up and down strokes. I'm not washing my brush, and you don't want to blend too much that the colors all blend together into one shade, but you should see just a little bit of them. And then I'm going to make it dry really good because I want to add some metallic gold, just in pieces, not too much. But I want the background to look like the heavens are shining down. Then I'm going to do her head. I'm going to take some tan, white, and a little bit of pink on a pouncer to make it look like a flesh color, and just start with the head. Press down and pull up, and using my medium round brush, I'm going to start the shape to her wings, doing a elongated C shape on one side, and then a backward C on the other side. Notice that her head is right above where that center point is. And then I'm going to take my medium brush and start feathering out some brush strokes. I'm going to kind of curve them up on the top half, and then where that middle curve is, start curving them down. You can even make more of a definition by, see, in that middle part there, I'm curving a line up almost like a smiley face to do that midsection, and then going the opposite way on the other side. You can make them as feathery looking as you want, and then I'm going to shape the head a little bit more, give her a neck and a chin because I want to give her a dress. We're going to do a simple dress with kind of a wide smiley face, and then pull two lines down. I'm using light blue and white for her dress to kind of match the background. And then I'm filling it in with up and down strokes with some white. I'm even using some navy blue to do some shading at the bottom. See how it fans out towards the bottom like a dress? Even going to add some highlights, up to you how detailed you do. And then on either side at the top, I'm going to do some shoulders with the same color I did for her head and bring them curved in towards her midsection and do like little ovals for her hands because I want her to be holding something. Let's do a heart because Valentine's Day is coming up. Perfect. All right, let's go back to that metallic gold. I'm using my medium round brush again and just kind of highlighting the outside edges of her wings in the gold. This is so much fun. I want it to make her look like she's glowing. You can even use this as more contouring for the wings on that midsection, and you can also make them longer too if you want. But I'm just highlighting the outside edges using very light strokes. And if you do too much, you can always go back in with some white like I'm doing here and blending in those middle brush strokes. That gives it kind of a white to tan to gold gradient and makes it look like they're glowing from the outside. Ooh, perfect. All right, let's even add some gold to the heart. And I'm going to fix up her dress, make it look a little bit more wavy down there and give her a V-neck. If you're a fashion designer, you could really make this look cool. I'm just doing something simple, adding some highlights to her head and her chin, some shading on the neck, even taking a detail brush and doing a little bit more detail, cleaning up the lines on the V. And let's give her some hair. Hair can make or break a character, so I'm just doing a simple hairstyle, giving her a little bit of part in the middle, some swoop bangs. You can make the head a little bit more round at the top, pulling the lines down. If you do too much hair, you can go back in with some tan to shape her face. I'm even going to use some of that tan to give her highlights. Do any hairstyle you want. I'm even going to take some of that dark brown and add it to the heart to outline it, give it some shading. And I want to add some highlights too, so let's do a little bit of white lines there. Good. All right. For the dress, I'm going to go back in and do a little bit of shading and highlighting again with that navy and that white at the bottom. I really want the bottom of her dress to look flowy, even though it is simple. There's beauty in simplicity. And then to top it off, let's try holographic illusions paint. It looks very, very thick and white, so it might be scary. But as you see here, I did some on her wings and her dress. It does dry clear, but I love this stuff because it actually dries with pink, blue, purple, and white glitter. See, I'm adding some to her hair, and then I even added a halo. The halo turned out great. I love it. I love it on the whole thing, actually. And there's a simple angel painting. I love how this one turned out, especially with the glitter and the metallic gold. When you go around the room and see how the light hits it, it almost changes the entire thing. So make it your own, have fun. I would love to see what you come up with. Let me show you how to paint a cardinal in a tree. So I'm going to use a mop brush with some light blue and white, and using an 11 by 14 canvas board, I'm doing back and forth strokes across the entire thing. Now before it dries, we want to blend in a couple other colors. So I'm going to take a little bit of light brown and blend in some different patches and also a little bit of dark green. It's okay to look a little bit muddy because I'm going to show you a blurred technique called bokeh today. That's B-O-K-E-H. So many different ways to do this, but here's an easy way. Get a couple different size pouncers and a clean mop brush. Now I'm going to start with my big pouncer and use some white and blue from the background. Make sure you have both together. And then in a couple different areas on your canvas, I'm just going to press down and twist a few times to make a few dots. You do not want to have a lot of paint on your sponge because then we're going to go in with the clean mop brush, and I made it a little bit damp. Most of the water is off, but I'm doing very light little brush strokes in circular motions around the circle to blur it a little bit. You're blending it into the background. You don't want to erase it completely, but you just want the hint of the circles there. Now I'm taking a medium pouncer with some of the light brown and white, and I'm going to do a couple more randomized circles. It's okay if they overlap in little clusters. And then same thing, clean up your mop brush again. Make sure it's just a tiny bit damp and very light circular motions. Now, I'm also going to take my tiny pouncer. Let's add a little bit of green in there. I'm using the dark green and white. I did little clusters all over the place, and then just dust them all into the background. It's okay if you're smudging a little bit of the paint around in the other areas of the canvas too. That gives it also a really nice look. I like to go back in with some brighter white. I have white and blue. Make sure your mop brush is clean, and then just dust it in there. Very light little circular strokes. Trust the process with this one. You may not like it right away, but it looks so much fun in the end. Now, taking a size 5 round brush, let's give the bird a branch to sit on. So I'm going to take some dark brown and a little bit of black and do a line starting in the bottom right-hand corner and curve it up to the left. That's just your core branch, so let's put your bird in next. Before doing any other branches, we want to make sure we leave room for him. First, leave a space for his legs, and we're going to do an egg shape. So the wide part of the egg is going to be at the top of the bird. I'm going to have him leaning to the left, and the pointed part of the egg is towards the bottom, and fill it in. I'm using a dark red for this just as a base coat, and give him a head, just a circle overlapping on the top of the egg. Fill that in, and you see how there's kind of points where the two meet. Make sure you do just a curved line to connect the two on both the front and the back. There we go. And at the pointed part of the egg, we're going to point that even more and do a thin line coming out with just light little brush strokes going down to make his tail. You can keep growing the tail that way, just light little strokes and fan it out towards the bottom. There's his tail. For a wing coming out, follow the curve of the top of him and just bring that out to a little point there on the back. And then to make him look like a cardinal, don't forget his head feathers called the crest. Follow the curve of his head out to a point at the top, it goes up to the right, and just bring little lines feathered down towards the back of his head. Make sure that's curved. And then with a detail brush, add his beak. I'm just going to use red for this so he's all one solid coat. Bring the top line out just a little bit and fill it in. And there's a basic cardinal. Now taking a smaller round brush, because we have the cardinal in there, we're free to design our branches however we want without worrying about leaving a space for him. But I'm making sure all these little branches are kind of thin. I'm barely pressing down on my canvas. And I know cardinals are sentimental, so you don't have to do this, but I'm designing my branches coming out in different areas to curve around him to look like a heart. A very subtle heart. I still want it to look like a tree. But design it however you want. Just remember not to make your branches perfectly straight, and every little branch you bring out, make sure it has a slight V shape to it. There we go. I'm going to add one down here. Perfect. Keep it simple if you can. Now let's go back to the cardinal. Let's add some legs with a detail brush. Bring a line out from his belly that is tilted down to the left, a little thicker towards the body. Let's do 2 there. Don't forget a couple little talons curving around the branch. There we go. And then let's start his mask. I'm going back with my slightly larger round brush and a little bit of black paint. Make sure you section off the beak with a backward C and just bounce in some texture. Now the mask comes out to almost a triangle shape. The point is lined up with the top part of his beak, and then it goes underneath his beak. He has a little beard here, and see right around where his neck is, you're going to see another little tiny point like another triangle. So it forms on the right side like a little C around his cheek area. Let's bounce in a little bit more fluffy texture underneath his beak and define that point at the bottom a little bit more. There we go. Always lightly bouncing the brush to make it look feathery. Now taking my smaller round brush, I'm going to take some of that black paint and start adding some definition to the wing. I'm making sure I emphasize that wing shape. Also a couple strokes behind his head and neck on his crest. If you do too much black, don't worry, you can go back in with some of your dark red and blend it a little bit. But the more highlighting and shading you do, the more three-dimensional he's going to look. Now I'm also going to take some white now and add highlights anywhere I want this cardinal to be bright red. Acrylic craft paint especially, I've noticed bright red is a little bit transparent, so any strokes you do in white, see I'm gonna even bounce in some feathery texture on his cheek. Anywhere you do the white, you're going to see the strokes, but you can turn that any color you want. So now I have the white in there, it's dry, I'm taking the bright red and just going right over top. Oh, I just got chills. Look, he's starting to look like a cardinal. If you do a couple coats of it, you can smooth it out a little bit, but anywhere you want really bright red, make sure you do white first. I'm gonna bounce in a couple feathery textures on his belly there. Don't forget his tail. And now let's go to his beak. What do red and yellow make? Orange, right? So cardinals usually have a reddish orange toned beak. So you can take some of that yellow with your red, since we already had red there, and start adding some highlighting to the top and the bottom of his beak. Don't forget to section off the top of the beak from the bottom with a little wiggly line. Don't do a straight line, but very, very thin wiggly line there. Add a little bit of white for highlights. Use some of the red and yellow for some shading towards the bottoms of each of the sections. Up to you how much detail you do, but that looks way more three-dimensional than just a solid red triangle. And then don't forget his eye. His eye is towards the back point of his top part of his mask. And just do a little circle. Don't forget a little bit of shine in the center there. Fix it up however you want, but there we go. I'm gonna point the top part of his mask. And now it all comes down to how much detail you actually want to do on the cardinal. I'm going to darken some of my shading and defining lines on my wing. I'm going to add more pops of white, like really thin lines, and fill that in with red. And then to tie him into the rest of the painting, let's take a cotton swab with some red that we used in the cardinal to add some berries. Just press down and pull up like a stamp. Cotton swabs usually have just the right size. And see how I'm doing them in clusters. Don't space them out evenly. It's okay for them to overlap. And it's also okay for them not to all touch the branch. You can draw little tiny lines coming off of the branch and connect them all, but I don't see the need to do that because if you're looking far away, you're not going to see all the little connecting lines. You're just going to see the red dots. Now a winter cardinal is what a lot of people asked for, so let's pretend it snowed. Taking my larger round brush now with some white paint, and see how I'm just lightly dabbing. I'm not just doing a straight line, I'm lightly bouncing it, and I'm doing little tiny sections with snow. Pretend the snow's falling, so the snow would be on the top part of the branches, but don't outline every single part. Just see how I have little sections of snow. There we go. So it looks like it snowed there. And this could be snow or shines in the berries, but take your detail brush with some white and do little tiny curves in each of the berries. This is optional, but really makes it pop. There we go. Now, and I can't help it, with all of my little figures and animals, I have to add little pops of highlights. This is just a tiny bit of white with my smaller round brush to make it look like his feathers are shining. Even add a little bit of shine to his legs to make them pop. And as a final touch, let's do a little bit of splatter snow with a flat brush. I watered down a little bit of white paint. I love the splatter snow, but I should have covered my cardinal so I didn't get too many splatters on him. So if you like that look, great. If not, make sure you cover him. I'm gonna just touch him up a little bit so he doesn't have so much snow on him. And there we go. That's how you paint a beginner snowy cardinal painting. I'd love to see how they turn out if you try it. And if you like this tutorial, follow me for more on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Happy painting!